FrancesBenjaminJohnston was one of the very first female photographers and photojournalists. She was a staunch advocate for women in the photography field, and her love of the craft branched in many different directions, from photographing the presidential family in the White House to the architecture and the southern plantation estates in the South. She was born in 1864 in Grafton, West Virginia, but spent most of her childhood in Washington, D.C. Her parents were affluent, with her father working as the head bookkeeper in the Treasury Department and her mother working as a journalist for the Baltimore Sun. She received her education from the prestigious Académie Julienne in Paris, becoming one of the first women to ever attend the school. She studied art, and when she returned to Washington in 1885, she worked briefly as a freelance illustrator. But quickly, her interest shifted to photography after receiving her first camera from George Eastman, the legendary inventor of the Eastman Kodak cameras. From there, she fell in love with the medium and the unique creative opportunities it afforded her. Because of her family's connections, Johnston was able to photograph a wide variety of subjects. She took pictures of the Washington elite, including the presidential family. She also photographed other high-profile celebrities of her time, including Susan B. Anthony, Mark Twain, Alice Roosevelt, and Booker T. Washington. She is even credited with taking the last portrait of President William McKinley before he was assassinated at the Pan American Exposition in 1901. Johnston didn't limit herself to shooting only the high echelons of society. She was constantly capturing the everyday life of the common man, taking on assignments that had her depicting the lives of coal miners, textile mill workers, and soldiers aboard battleships. One of her most famous collections of pictures involved the Hampton Institute, a school founded to teach ex-slaves. She used her strong sense for composition and her keen ability to arrange human subjects to provide a remarkable photographic clarity to the images of Hampton students in the classroom and on the job. She used black and white shading to intensify photos and underscore the segregation between the races in America. Many of the photos were even shown in the Universal Exhibition in Paris in 1900 as part of a project to celebrate the accomplishments of the country's black community. As her fame as a photographer grew, so did her reputation as an independent, self-made woman. She was unmarried, but still able to support herself through her work and strongly advocated for women's participation in the photography field. In 1897, she published an article in the Ladies' Home Journal titled, "What a Woman Can Do with a Camera." One of the most poignant sections of the article encouraged women by saying, "To an energetic, ambitious woman with even ordinary opportunities, success is always possible, and hard, intelligent, and conscientious work seldom fails to develop small beginnings into large results." One of the best examples of Johnston as a bohemian, liberated woman is a self-portrait she took in 1896 depicting her holding a cigarette and a beer stein. She sits in a masculine position, revealing her petticoats, in a dramatic effort to subvert traditional Victorian stereotypes for women. She took many self-portraits throughout her lifetime, each one different. In a society that liked to place women into one set role, Johnston made a career out of playing as many as she could. Later in her life, she switched the subjects of her photos from people to architecture and landscapes. She became greatly interested in photographing and preserving plantations and estates in the South, and historians have praised her documentation of many pre-Civil War buildings that have since been destroyed. Johnston continued working as a photographer until her very last days. She moved to New Orleans in 1945 and died there on March 16, 1952, at the age of 88. After her death, a large portion of her photographs were donated to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and can still be viewed on the library's website. Altogether, Johnston's work paved the way for the future of the photojournalism industry. Her dramatic documentary style influences the field to this day. She combined her artistic schooling with her photographic skill to create incredible images of the common man, a tradition that continues in news bureaus across the country. Her support for women's rights and historical preservation helped push those subjects into the public's awareness. She was a modern woman living before her time, and it is this contemporary style that makes her photos so powerful to this day.